Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of this 3-part series on our starting 5 basketball graphic. And just to refresh your memory, I'll go ahead and put the graphic up. And that's the way the graphic looks. In episode 1, we actually built this graphic and put the automation in. In episode 2, I showed you how to bring data into this graphic using the list widget. And today, I'm going to show you how to use an Excel spreadsheet and a function called vLookup in order to bring this data into this graphic. So we're going to have this and so much more for you on today's episode of One Man Stream. All right, to start off with, I'm going to talk a little bit about vLookup, and I have some information right here. And if you look vLookup up, if you do a Google search, you're going to find a bajillion different tutorials and explanations of vLookup. I put a little note here for myself: don't make it harder than it is, because with vLookup you need 4 different arguments. And the first argument is it's our search term input. Argument 2 is the range that we're looking into for that data. Argument 3 is within that range of data, it's broken up into rows. And so the first row is always going to be 1. So this would be row 1, this would be row 2, this would be row 3, and this would be row 4, because our data range that we're going to search through is going to be this information right here. So our data range is going to start here, which is H, follow it over 2, and it's going to go to this cell right here, and we're going to follow that. It's K6. So our range of data is going to be H2 to K6, and you'll see that later. And just remember that with vLookup, it always looks to the right. It's kind of the same way that you read. It's going to look left to right. So for this first one here, for Jones, what it's going to do is it's going to start looking through these vertical columns like this, as implied by vLookup, and it's going to come to our search entry, our search term input, and it's going to come to Jones, and then it's going to start looking over by rows. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3, and row 4. So row 2 is going to be full name, so that's going to be over here where it's going to say starting player. Row 3 is number, and that's going to be right here. And then row 4 is going to be the player image graphic, and that's going to be right here. So you may think, well, we're just duplicating our work from one side to the other. Well, we're really not. In order to use data sources, we're going to have to map it to the individual data points that we want to bring into the graphic. So just imagine if we had about 30 more rows of information here. Each time that we use this graphic, we would have to go back in and map these individual fields. But when we're using vLookup, we're going to bring that information into a set number of fields, and it's going to be the same each time. And so it's going to make it much easier for us to map this graphic. So just imagine, I just only have 6 pieces of information right here just to make it simple. But just imagine if it went all the way down the page. We're going to be able to sort through that, bring out the 5 players that we want along with their accompanying information, and we're going to be able to use that in our graphic. So we're going to show you how to do that. So I'm just going to start off with a sample, and using our vLookup explanation that we have here, I'm going to start right here. Okay, so we're going to do our first search here, and I'm going to just give you an example of how we did that, and then I'm going to show you the rest of the spreadsheet. So we're going to start right here, and we're going to put an equal sign in. And then you also see up here in the function bar, it shows an equal sign, and then we're going to start typing the function that we're going to use, vLookup, and you can see it comes in. It says vLookup. And we're going to push, and we're going to put a parentheses in here. Okay, so let's go to our first argument. This is the data that we're looking for, our search term input. And our first, where our search term input is going to be, it's going to be in this cell right here. and it's going to be the last name of the player. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and you can see how it adds it into our VLOOKUP formula. Then we're going to hit comma, and then the next piece of information is our range. And as we talked about earlier, we know what our range is. It's H2 through K10. I'll put another comma. And then the next, comma. And then the next piece of data is our third argument, and within that range, what column contains the info we seek? Well, here's our range right here. It highlighted it in pink, and remember, it looks left to right, just like you would be reading. So this is column 1, this is column 2. So column 2 is going to bring us back the full name, and that's what we're looking for here. So we're going to go ahead and put a 2 in here, and then we're going to put another comma, and then the last piece of information is whether we want an exact match or not. And we really don't need an exact match in this case because we really don't want it to be case sensitive. So we're going to put false here, and then we're going to hit enter. We can come down here, and under example, what we're going to do is we're going to put in, this is where we're searching for. As you can see right here, I highlighted the top part in red, and this is the information that we're inputting, and then these other pieces of information is what our search is bringing back. So let's go ahead and put the name sample in here and see what happens. It brings back the first name, Joe Sample. So what it did, what VLOOKUP did, is it came up here and vertically started looking for our search term, which was sample, within the range that we indicated. And then it went to the second column, which is right here, and it pulled out the full name and put it here, which is exactly what we wanted. This first column is starting player name. So now we're going to go here to where the number is, and we're going to go equals once more, and then go up here under our function line and start typing in VLOOKUP, and then our parentheses. And our first argument is where do we want that information to go, and it's going to be right here again, so we're going to click there. And then the next part, if you remember, it's our range. Our range is H2 through K10. And then another comma, and now we want to get the number column. And remember, it reads from right to left. So this is column 1, column 2. Our number column is going to be column 3. So we're going to put a 3 in here. And again, we don't want an exact match, so we're going to put false and close our parentheses and click enter. And again, it searches through, it finds sample, and then it goes to the third column, and it brings up 99, which is the number that we have for our player Joe Sample. So the last piece of information is the player image. So we're going to start off the same way. We're going to hit equal, and then go up here under our function bar and type in VLOOKUP again. Parentheses. Where's that information? Where are we going to input that information as our search term? Well, that goes right here. We're going to click that cell, C29, put a comma in. Now we're going to go to our range, H2 through K10, and now another comma. And then we're going to go to our column to find that bit of information. Well, now we're looking for the image. So this is column 1, column 2, column 3. Our image is in column 4. So let's go ahead and put a 4 there. And again, you're going to get an approximate match, not an exact match. So we're going to put false, close our parentheses, and hit equal. And it does bring in that bit of information right there. So once again, with VLOOKUP, it's going to go through vertically looking for the data we told it to search for. In this case, it's sample, and then it's going to go with look through the range that we gave it, which is this whole bit of information right here. And then it's going to search for the column where we want that specific bit of information, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. And the last piece of information is whether you want it to be an exact or a close match. And like I said, we're not wanting an exact match, so we're putting false as that last argument, and it's bringing this up. If you click on it, it's going to show our VLOOKUP for this. Our term that we're searching for, again, is the last name of the player. And if you click right here, that is C2. So that's where the information, we're inputting the information. Then it has our range H2 to K6. I just made it a little bit smaller for up here. The column for the name is column 2. Remember, this is column 1, column 2. And then the last thing is true or false for an exact match. So that, I mean, that's how that's done. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's 1,000 different tutorials for VLOOKUP if I didn't explain it well enough. But for what we're doing, for our situation here, if you remember this information here and try not to make it harder than it is, it'll really work for you. So the next part is we have this information, and we have, well, let me just go through this and I'll show you how this will change our graphic. So I'm going to change some of these names up. Right now we have it as Jones, Score, Swish, Smith, and Clutch. I'm going to change these up a little bit. Let's go ahead and make this first one Score. And then the second one Swish. And then the third one Smith. And then this one Clutch. And then the last one, Jones. And this is actually from my OneDrive in the cloud, so it's going to take it a minute before all these are going to change. So I'll just hold here with you until those changes take place. And there you go. So now you see where it's Score, Swish, Smith, Clutch, and Jones, which is the exact same thing that we have here. So that's part 1. Okay, first off, I'm going to have to show you how to bring in the spreadsheet into this. So I hit the hamburger menu here and I went under Data Sources. And then I added it. So what I did is I clicked right here, Excel, comma separated value. And then I went and I searched for my spreadsheet. So I hit Browse. I know it's on my OneDrive. I clicked OneDrive. And I know it's under my desktop. So I'm going to scroll down, and it's One Man Stream Episode 13 Excel sheet. So I'm going to click on that and click Open. Click OK. And you can see it brought in that information from the spreadsheet. I did tweak a couple of the settings. Well, let's do this. I'm going to use the first row. This is what it looks like when it first comes in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to click this box here, use first row as column names, and then I'm also going to convert the rows to columns. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see now we're just going to have one long row, but what it does is it brings in starting player 1, player name 1, number 1, graphic 1. And it's going to break it up like that for each player. So then we're going to have starting player 2, and then player 2 name, number 2, graphic image player 2, and then the other information. And it does that for each individual player, and it makes it easier to find your information when you're doing the mapping. So that's how we did it. I don't want both of these in there because I don't want it to mess up my layout, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one. And then I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to right click on the title editor, and now we're back to where we were a moment ago. And I'm going to show you how you do the first player name. So I'm going to come down here to player name, and let's do the player number first. Player number, data source. You can see our Excel spreadsheet. We only have one spreadsheet, or on this particular spreadsheet, we only have one table. So it's just sheet 1. And then this is going to have all the columns. And what we're looking for is player number. When you change it to columns, it's going to have that first bit of information as 1, the second bit of information is 2, the third bit as 3, the fourth bit is 4, the fifth bit is 5. So it's going to be a little clumsy going from the way we had the graphic set up to the mapping part of it, just because of how the data is brought in. But what we're looking for is number 1. And here's number 1 right here. So all I did was select number 1 and click OK, and you can see where it brings in the number associated with the data that we just mapped it to. So then we're going to go to player name and then data source again. This information is going to stay the same, but you're going to have to select it each time the first time you set it up. Excel, comma separated value, sheet 1, starting player. So let's go ahead and click this. So we're looking for the first thing we did, or the first bit of information we did was number 1, but this is starting player 1. So we'll click on starting player 1, and that bit of information is brought in. So then you would go to the next part, which would be player 1 number. Well, this is where it gets a little complicated, because what we're actually going to be looking for is player number 2, the way the data is brought in. So this information, again, it's going to be the same. Excel, comma separated value, sheet 1. From our drop down menu, we're going to be looking for number 2, and that's what's highlighted right there, and you can see where the information is brought in. Then we're going to go to player name, and again, the way the data is brought in, this is actually going to be player 2. We want starting player 2. Starting player 2, and it brings in Sally Swish, which is what we were needing. And that's all you have to do when you do the mapping on this. It just takes a little bit of time, but once you set the mapping up, it is set up forever. Once you have that information set up, or you have it mapped to your graphic, all you have to do is go back to your spreadsheet each time, and then what you can do is just put in the new information for the new team, and then the VLOOKUP functions you put in there, they're going to remain the same. The only thing that you may have to remember to do is change your range. If you put a whole bunch of information in there, you're increasing the data that you're putting into your spreadsheet. You're going to have to go back into those VLOOKUPs that you set up, and you're going to have to adjust the range. But that is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So I hope I was able to explain this well enough for you. VLOOKUP is something that I use quite a bit in the spreadsheets that I do. It takes a little bit of time, like I said at the beginning, to set it up, but once you have it set up, it's there forever, and it's going to be quite the time saver for you down the road. This has been our third installment in this 3-part series on our starting 5 basketball graphic. I hope you found this tutorial series helpful. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe so that you'll be alerted when new videos are posted. Thank you.